shall we? Pope Alexander III. Let's do that. So Pope Alexander III. He was the Pope who carved up the Americas. No, it should be the 6th. What am I doing? He's the one who carved up the Americas with Columbus. Okay, so here we go. There he is. Now, very important to research this Borgia family. They are Spanish. So here he is here, Rodrigo Lanzol y de Borja. Okay. Now, this name is very close to me because when I went to Italy in 2013 to stay with my cousins and my relatives in Calabria, they live in the town called Borgia. Okay, my mother grew up in Borgia, so these families, you'll find that they name many towns that they've conquered after their bloodlines, their corporation. And so the Borgia family is very, very close to me. But here it is. He was around when in 1492. Okay, and he was the one who signed a contract with Columbus, who was a Colonna from the Colonna family. Of course, Cristobal Colon gives it away. He was a Colonna, and that's the family who was fighting with the Orsinis for hundreds of years. Now, this guy here, he made a papal bull declaring all the indigenous people of the Americas as to be animals and heathens, therefore they could be murdered. So let's have a look at the list of popes, shall we? Now, what you'll notice on this list is very, very interesting. Here is the name, the original name of the Pope, starting from St. Peter. Let's go down this list, shall we? And you'll notice here it says there's no surnames for 1,000 years. Pay attention. So this guy's called St. Pius, and his papal name becomes Pius. Okay, so we've got the name, the personal name is over here on the right. And then the papal name, like Bergoglio. Let's have a look. Let's go right down and show you how it works first. So Bergoglio is on the right, and Francis is on the left. Okay, Ratzinger on the right, Benedict. I forget, Wojtyla, Karol Wojtyla becomes John Paul II. Okay, so let's go back. I had to do it like that just to show you how to. All right, so as you can see, their names don't change. So Soterius becomes Saint Soter. This guy, same name. Victor becomes Victor. And there's no surnames here, guys.
So what does that mean then, exactly, Santos?
That surnames are a corporation, and they were created to create families. Okay, so and houses. So the House of Windsor, the House of Rothschild. Okay, so what they've done is they've created a house, a corporation, an estate, a trust, and so they create a name, and then they create trusts, pool all their money together, and start creating agendas to further their business interests. That's all they're doing. It's all business, nothing personal. These people are just materialists. They're greedy. They're businessmen, and they're inspired by demons. Okay. So pay attention. Dionysius is Dionysius. Felix becomes Felix. There's something very, very sus about this, guys. Why? And of course, look at all these pictures. You can see that this has all been made up, right? So let's go down to 1,000 years. Well, here we go. Where's the first surname? Stephanos is Stefano, and we're up to the year 757. Okay, no surnames. Nope. Here we go. All right. So here we are in the year 816. So about 1,200 years ago, this concept, and you can see that this guy, look where the Colonna family comes from, guys. One of the first papal surnames in existence. And then here we have Massimi. Do you know who Massimo is? Well, it's Orsini. On my whiteboard, you see the maximum, they call themselves Maximus family. Why? Because the Grey Pope, Pepe Orsini, he controls the strings of the Black Popes, 3 of them now, and the White Pope, Francis. And then, of course, we've got the Farnese, Juan Carlos of Spain. I neglected to mention Juan Carlos of Spain. He's also the King of Jerusalem. He is the Roman monarch of the world, and he is the military navigator of the Knights of Malta. So between this Juan Carlos of Spain, the Farnese, and the Great Pope Pepe Orsini, there's not much more power shared anywhere. Okay, they are totally and absolutely on top, as they always have been. So let's have a look at these names carefully, guys, as we go down, and you'll discover some amazing things. Open your eyes. See this? Order of Saint Benedict. Okay, the Benedictines were putting popes on the throne. Look at this, all the way to the year 600. Even going back, I won't do that. You can do that yourself. So let's have a look at some families that stand out. Hey, Boniface. There's Constantine, yes, because Romano, this pope was a Constantinian. Okay, Constantine, 500 or 600 years prior, created the first commercial corporation called Christianity. Okay, so Christianity went business in that time, in that period. It was once a beautiful religious science, natural and wonderful, saving people, blessing people, and then these empire builders destroyed it. So you're going to discover some amazing things here, guys. Be patient, please. Maybe I've gone just a little bit too early. I'm looking for names. I already can see names, but I don't want to stop and talk about them because it'll just throw me off concentrating on these 13 families that are the Zoroastrian Persian families that are ruling the world. Okay, so we'll try and keep it simple. Ranieri is big name, Ranieri. Here we go. Okay, so I've exposed the Gaetani family. We're going to see in a minute that Pope Boniface VIII was a Gaetani. Okay, this is a big, big, big family. These guys, these are big demonic murdering family. Okay, and their businesses will be anything from chemtrails to big pharma to the military industrial complex. These are the only families that own all of it. Okay, if they share it with anyone on the stock market, it'll be crumbs. Rest assured. Breakspear. Here we go, guys. Supposedly, this was the only Englishman, Adrian IV, to be a pope in the year 1154 when the Crusades began. Yes, because the Breakspears come from these bloodlines. They are related to the Farneses and the Orsinis, and they rule Great Britain, and they have done for 1,000 years. Okay, proper. Forget about Julius Caesar 2,000 years ago who invaded Britain. It's the Breakspears and the Julio-Claudian descendants. Orsini, folks, here we go. Bourbon. Here's another name they use, Bourbon, or Bourbon, or Bourbon. So we see the Orsinis coming into power 1,000 years ago. And all these other names, rest assured, they come from these 13 names, okay? Visconti, there you go. I've got that on the board as Conti. Visconti, Conti, these are accountants. Conti means to count in Italian, okay? So they are accountants. In other words, they count money, gold. They are behind banking because they count money. The name tells all. Orsini, Gaetano. How about this? You see, the Gaetani family merging with the Orsini family. Now, the Orsinis became the Guelphs, the Colonnas became the Ghibellines. Now, we know the Guelphs and the Ghibellines were fighting, just like the Montagues and the Capulets. But originally, they are Orsini and Colonna. Colonna is Colon. Colon is Cristobal Colon, who is Christopher Columbus, and who is... This family is behind the Knights of Columbia, the District of Columbia, British Columbia, anything that's got Columbia, Columbia Pictures, etc. It all is owned by the Colon family, the Colonna family. Okay. Savelli, big one here. Giacomo Savelli. Caetani again. And here we go. Here's my favorite Pope, Pope Boniface VIII. I exposed this guy. He destroyed the Knights Templar. Or well, it was only, they were destroyed in 1307. But his papal bull basically guaranteed that they would be destroyed. But around this period, folks, 1302, he created the Unum Sanctum. Okay, here's the papal bull, which is the foundation of all slavery, and which proclaimed the papal supremacy and pushing it to its historical extreme. Gaetani, this is the Orsini, relatives of Orsini and Farnese and the Medicis. They're all interrelated. Aldobrandini. So we could really start here. This is when everything started going downhill, really. Then the Renaissance came to counter all of these papal bulls and the Age of Discovery, but then the Counter-Reformation snuffed out the Renaissance, and we've been in slavery on steroids since about 1542 with the Copernican Revolution. And let me remind you, it is because of the globe that we are enslaved. The globe is behind it all. Everything dealing with this this nonsense of globe is all going back to the cosmology of Copernicus, Kepler, and Galilei, and they were all Jesuits, all funded by the Jesuits, as we will see nice and clearly. So these idiots, these half-cocked researchers who go online saying, oh, the flat Earth is a Jesuit psyop. It's the other way around. The globe is a psyop. It has been for 500 years. It's the biggest psyop in the history of the known of history. Borgia, here we go, guys. Okay, Borgia, pay attention here. This is the year 1548. Just prior to that, this guy here, he made a papal bull called, issued the papal bull, not this one, it was another one. But anyway, it allowed the Portuguese the right to conquer and subjugate the Saracens and pagans. Okay, this is when they started attacking pagans and inquisitions big time, big time. This Pope here, Borgia, the first Spanish Pope, ordered the Feast of the Transfiguration to be celebrated on the 6th of August. And he murdered Joan of Arc. or rather ordered the retrial of Joan of Arc, but he would have been behind persecuting Joan of Arc. Piccolomini, this is a big family from Siena, the Republic of Siena, the first banking city in the world, which is still the oldest bank in the world. Barbo, they're just relatives of the Orsini. De la Rovere, this is a very important name, guys. De la Rovere. They put about 4 popes on the throne. Authorized an inquisition targeting converted Jewish Christians in Spain at the request of Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand. There you go. This is, Sixtus was so evil. This is one of the evilest men who ever existed. He's about as evil as Caligula. And where was he from? Genova. Okay, I've already pointed out that Genova was where Columbus and the Colon family come from, and everything Columbia comes from Genova. Here we go, another Borgia, and this is Alexander, and here he is, nephew of Callistus, of course, the other evil piece of poo. I'll try and be nice this time. I definitely used an excess of naughty words last show, which I will never repeat again. The father to Cesare Borgia and Lucretia Borgia, these are famous people, divided, now listen carefully, divided the extra-European world between Spain and Portugal in the bull Inter Caetera. Okay? Now that's the papal bull that has divided South America straight down the middle. Portuguese-speaking Brazil to the east, and Mexico all the way down to Argentina in the west. And this was a Borgia. These are, here we're going to start seeing the conquistador families, the people behind who funded Pizarro and Cortes. Here again, Piccolomini, De la Rovere again. And here we go, Lorenzo de Medici, the guy who Michelangelo painted. That's his famous picture there. That's his portrait, Michelangelo. And this was the fat pig who started indulgences. Let's see if we can see that here. Yeah, here we go. Remembered for granting indulgences to those who donated to rebuild St. Peter's Basilica. Excommunicated Martin Luther. Extended the Spanish Inquisition into Portugal. These de Medicis are murderous, murderous people. And there were good de Medicis, of course, that put their money into the Renaissance and the translating of Plato, Pythagoras, and the Hermetica. Okay, Cosimo de Medici. But some of them were just pure evil, guys. So indulgences, what are they? Well, when you go to court and they issue their papers, summonses, and fines, those are indulgences. Okay, you pay your way to the corporate masters to get to heaven, which means to so that you can continue doing commerce and not go to jail. That's what it means to go to heaven in their system. Indulgences, the Inquisition, they are still alive today. Here we go again. We've got another Medici, Giuliano de Medici. This guy was the guy who first wanted to start the globe. This is the first globalist, Medici. Let's see if we can see that here. No, there's nothing here, but you'll find that this guy here, he started funding Copernicus, and he was pushing him to publish his book. But of course, Copernicus published it just 1 year before he died, or I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but a year after he died. But this is the guy, this is the Pope who was pushing him, okay? And then, of course, straight from the Medicis, from the frying pan into the fire, we go to Alessandro Farnese. This is the first Farnese. I think there will be a few more. Okay, Italian, opened the Council of Trent the most evil council, which is still going today, and it's the Inquisition, torturing witches, flat earthers, and true cosmologists. They funded the Opium Wars in China because China resisted the Jesuits like the Japanese did. They were beheading them in Nagasaki up until the 1600s. Then Japan succumbed and China didn't. So they flooded China with opium. Then this guy here they were sending people like Matteo Ricci, astronomers back in the day, to Japan and China to bring the new globe cosmology to them. The Chinese resisted. They were flat up until probably mid-1800s. But now all of their institutions are teaching the globe, of course. And of course now we have Chinese moon missions, haven't we? Chuckle, chuckle. We saw a couple of years ago that the Chinese had their space rocket landed on the moon. Did you see that, guys?
Yeah, saw that.
Yeah, so they certainly have succumbed to the Jesuits. He decreed the second and final excommunication of King Henry VIII, appointed Michelangelo to supervise construction of St. Peter's Basilica. Here is where all the trouble really begins with this guy here, guys, Pope Paul III. As soon as the Farneses got into power, they basically, went feral, did more damage than the Borgias, who carved up the Americas, and the Gaetani and the De Medicis. Okay, let's continue on. I just don't have time to elaborate on all the many crimes of this evil demon. Here's another Medici. Boncompagni, this is another one. Aldobrandini, there you go. Aldebaran, the Zoroastrians. Here's another, De Medici. Borghese. Now, if you go to the Vatican today, just in front of the, on the facade of the Vatican, right there in front of the main entrance door of the Vatican, you'll see the coat of arms of the Borghese family. How did they get, and I think it's actually this guy here, they've actually got this guy's, this is the guy who actually managed to get his coat of arms on the front of the Vatican there. So, yeah, here we go. It says it here. Known for various building projects, which included the facade of St. Peter's Basilica. And of course, one of the biggest parks in Rome called Villa Borghese. And if you look at all the palaces and buildings in Rome, you'll see the name Farnese, Borghese, Borgia, Orsini. When I was traveling through Italy, I was surprised how many roads were dedicated to these families. You'll see Via Orsini, Via de' Medici, everywhere, towns named after them, everywhere. Barberini, here we go, Pamphili, here's another one, guys. This family here is involved in money and drugs and other types of slavery. I think they work in with the Pallavicini. The Pallavicini family, who control Allah and Islam, they set up the Bank of England in 1694 with William, the descendants of the William of Orange, and the Pallavicini are behind the banking in England, okay, and the central bank there. Chigi, another big family. I've got their name behind me on the board. Come from Tuscany, okay, and read their deeds. Go over to the right and read their deeds. They are real criminals. Orsini, Conti, Michelangelo dei Conti, Orsini, Lorenzo Orsini, Lambertini. Are you having fun?
Absolutely. History lesson on the mob for sure.
Oh yeah.
It's just so staggering, so much information actually online.
It's staggering, guys. It's what they've done to us. They created the Inquisition.
Good,
They
good.
created the surname, the surety name, which is a corporation, a corpse, a body, a dead body. They created globalism, all their global agendas, global economy. The New World Order, we don't need to go looking for it. It's not coming. It's here. It's been around since Copernicus. Because what did he write about? De revolutionibus. Revolution means a total revolution in the way of seeing things. They had to stop us being stationary and flat, folks. They had to make a prison, okay? And they did. They made a globe where everybody's upside down spinning relatively, held together. They funded the Jesuit Newton, who created a new field of science called material science, mechanistic science, and gravity, and all of this hocus pocus. He knew he was lying. Einstein knew he was lying. Darwin knew he was lying. Darwin is an Orsini. They all come from the Orsinis and the Farneses, folks. All of them. Yeah, and all of these modern day popes, we're going to see pictures of them now, photos. All of these, they might have their names Sarto and Chiesa, Battista della Chiesa, but they're all Orsinis and Borgias and Farneses. The reason being is they had to change their names, otherwise people would realise. People would realise that there's just these 5 or 6 families, and then there's all the other poor people. Okay, so they had to do this, and so they created many corporations and sub-corporations and gave those corporations names, surnames, business names. Okay, Bonacci is a business name, and all of your surnames. Pacelli, this is the guy who basically created. Well, he was around in the First World War, but he was behind Mussolini. This guy was, oh mate, Pacelli was. I've known about this guy for about 40 years. My father has always been attacking the Vatican. Being a Jehovah's Witness, he always attacked the Vatican, and he knew that this Pope was around when he was a little boy. My father, born in 33, he knows this guy. Everyone does in Italy. They're criminals. Luciani, which was the one that was killed? 4 days. No, we want the one that was murdered in 78. Is this the guy? Yeah, John Paul I. 33 days. Yeah, go 1 month. They murdered this guy. This guy was about to change. See, because this guy here, before him, this guy here, Pope Paul the Sixth, he started the here we go, the Second Vatican Council. Okay, in 1962, a year before I was born. Well, this guy here, Luciani, who was murdered, poisoned, he was going to change all of this bullshit from the Second Vatican Council. The Second Vatican Council basically destroyed the last vestiges of true Christianity in the Catholic Church. This guy's a Freemason. This guy was totally a Farnese and an Orsini. These guys are deliberately creating destruction within their own church. I don't know why, but and now here we have a Jesuit, Francis. You'll find that this guy's probably not of the elite, and neither was I think Ratzinger is. I don't think this Polish guy was either, but all these other ones, they've all been Persian Italian. Okay, even this guy that was murdered, he was a good-hearted guy, you know, and he wanted to change things, just like many people have. You know, JFK, he's from the elite family, the Kennedys, who are also related to the Orsinis and the Rothschilds. You know, you'll find that there's been a lot of people in history who actually come from these families who wanted good for us. So it's not about let's attack these families and hate them. It's about exposing the bad ones of these families. That's all, and setting the records right and exposing what they've done to us. They've created the military-industrial complex. They've created globalism. The one world religion is Catholicism, folks. In China, they have birth certificates, do they not? Then they are Catholics. In Japan, do they have birth certificates? Yes. See, here's a fact. Up until about 100 years ago, the Japanese didn't have surnames. And then all of a sudden, this is the reason why there are hundreds of thousands of different surnames in Japan, whereas there's only about, in China, there's only about 2,000 surnames, okay? In Japan, there's hundreds of thousands. Why? Well, because the Jesuits managed to convince the Japanese people about 100 years ago, whenever it happened, I think it was about late 1800s, to create surnames. So they all went and made these silly names like, Yamamoto, Nakashima, which means, basically middle of the island, on top of the mountain. They just made up names, Nakamoto, Kawasaki, all of these names. I laugh at them because I can speak basic Japanese. I learned how to read and write kanji, hiragana, and katakana. I started in 2005 when I started doing musical tours in Japan. And so, being a linguist, I learned Japanese. And what I learned, the Japanese people there told me that their surnames are just, put together, slapped together, because they never had this tradition. It's just recent. And so you have a look at some Japanese names and you'll just have a laugh, although even though we have strange surnames as well. For instance, when I went to school, I went to school with the Kneebones, and the Hancocks. And I thought, well, either one of their ancestors broke their bones, the knee bones, and the Hancocks, maybe one of their ancestors was a really good masturbator and happened to get that name. I don't know how you get a name like that, but they are funny names when you think of it.